Good afternoon, everybody. We'll give everybody a few seconds to get settled and logged in. If you haven't done so already, if you could rename your name with your graduation year. If you're not an Emmanuel person, if you could rename yourself with your company name so that Charles can see who's joining us today. We're so glad that you're here. Thank you so much. We'll give everybody a minute to get settled. We have a couple more people who will be logging in, and we'll give everybody a chance to get settled first. So welcome. We're so glad you could join us. I see Dr. Rissmeyer. Charles, do you see Dr. Rissmeyer?
I see. Hello, Dr. Rissmeyer. It's good to see you virtually.
It's great to see you, Charles. So glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I don't think I've seen you in 2 years since the last Emmanuel alum event in the area. So
I know, that was great. I loved seeing you in DC. So now Zoom makes everything possible.
It does.
That's great. Okay, if you're just joining us, we'll give everybody a second to get settled. And we're so happy that you're with us today. Thank you so much.
And I see my classmate on here. Hey, Sue.
Hi, Charles. Hi. Good to see you.
I'm trying to be professional, but I haven't seen the last reunion. So I'm like, oh, I hope all is well with you and your family.
Good. Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Alan, maybe we'll cut these portions.
Oh no, this is the best part. Are you kidding? This is the non-dry part. This is great. This is great. Well, we are going to get started. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Ellen Still, and I am the Associate Director of Alumni Relations here at Emmanuel College. Also joining on the call today is my colleague, Jessica Schwinn. She's our gift processor and database associate. If you've not done so already, please add your name and class here on the screen. If you're not an Emmanuel alum, we would love to know the school or company that you're joining us from. Thank you. After Charles's presentation, we'll have a casual and open discussion and encourage everyone to take turns adding to that discussion. Please bear with us as we get into a rhythm, and please remain on mute unless you are speaking. Questions can also be submitted via the chat or Q&A function located at the bottom of your screen throughout the talk. Feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to as well. We're so excited to present the 8th installment of our Emmanuel Together Alumni Spotlight Series today with Charles Jackson. Charles is a native of Baltimore, Maryland, and a 2006 graduate of Emmanuel College. During his years at Emmanuel, he found he had an affinity for diversity and inclusion issues, especially those dealing with race. After graduating from college, he went on to receive his certification as a diversity practitioner from the NTL Institute. Charles has served as the program manager, outreach specialist for numerous local and national African-American health campaigns, including the American Cancer Society and multiple Centers for Disease Control and Prevention funded campaigns for health issues, including influenza, HIV, and tobacco. In 2013, Charles received his certification of community health leadership from Morehouse School of Medicine in Atlanta, Georgia. Currently, Charles teaches Introduction to Health Disparities to future medical practitioners and serves as the Health Equity Director for the Baltimore City Health Department. Welcome, Charles. We're so happy you're with us today.
Thank you so much, Ellen, for having me and inviting me to this virtual space with you all. I'm excited to be here. I've watched a couple of the other videos from the previous months, and they are hard acts to follow. So I hope that I can at least be on par with some of my friends. Actually, Lorena, we served together when she was a part of the WAS and I was part of the Black Student Union, and she's always a dynamic speaker. So I said, okay, I have to follow that act, but I'm ready. So again, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Treat Me How I Want to Be Treated. This is my journey to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I know that, as stated before, many of you have been a part of these conversations for the last couple of months, and many have been sharing different stories. Lorena, I know, shared critical race theory. There was a conversation about disabilities, and then there was also a conversation about DEI overall. So this is my journey around a couple of things. So how my passion, my faith, preparation, and personal mission statement coincide. So as always, I'll start with this. If you don't know, because we're in a virtual space, I'm Black. Hello, you might not have seen that, but I have to start with my group memberships because they inform who I am, and then they also explain my lens. So as a Black cisgender male, straight identified, young-ish person, I say young-ish because to my students, I'm old. I ask what connotates old. They said anything over 25. But a part of the national organization that I serve in, I'm a part of the young professionals. So I am in this weird in-between space. I'm currently able-bodied, middle-class US citizen who's Christian. And so all of these portions, all of these group memberships shape how I see the world, and I cannot separate myself from my identity groups. I'll start with what helped shape my life and what helped shape my view on many things. So if you look to the left, there's a school and church that's combined, and that was Cathedral Christian Academy. If you've ever talked to anyone from Baltimore, they will say, which side of town are you from? So I'm from Northeast Baltimore, and my family's from East Baltimore. And I started my school life at Cathedral. They were two things. They were pro-Black and they were pro-Jesus at the same time. So our days started an hour before school. We did prayer. We read the Old Testament, we read the New Testament, we recited poems from Langston Hughes, we sang the Black National Anthem, which you just heard on the Super Bowl, Lift Every Voice and Sing. It was a whole hour program before the school day started. And so it was an uplifting moment. I was able to see people who look like me. I was able to learn from those who were subject matter experts and really get a sense of myself very early on. And so fast forward to high school, it was the flip. Now, mind you, it's Baltimore, and Baltimore, for many of you that may know, is 62 to 70%, depending on what year you're looking at the data, African-American, Black. But Curley Catholic institution was at the time of around 92%, 90 to 92% white. So here I come from this uber Black school and uber Christian school into this Catholic institution. And it was a culture shift for me. And one of the things that took place was culture shares at Archbishop Curley. I would get questions like, you know what? Can I ask you this without being offended? And I would end up being this cultural ambassador. And it really worked out because I was able to learn from those from different backgrounds. There's still some names that I cannot say. I lived about 5 minutes away from the school, and it's a currently Black, all Black neighborhood now. But when I moved there, I think I may have caused white flight because I was the first little Black boy on the block around the corner from this school. But it was an enclave that was mostly Italian and mostly Greek. So names that I could not say, like Stephanopoulos, I'm like, okay, I'm not sure how to say that. And Angelini or Angelino, all of the folk that lived around the area, they had those names. But also at Curley is where I started my walk around psychology. I was a psychology major at Emmanuel, but my first intro to psych class was at Curley. And I wanted to know why people did what they did. And I wanted to know, well, what made people tick? And so I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I found Emmanuel in Boston. And I said, okay, I'm going to be a psychologist. I wanted to be the Black Dr. Phil, everyone. I wanted a nice Shades Lounge chair. I wanted a nice bay window and an oak desk. I knew that this was what I was going to do. And senior year, the counselors at Emmanuel and some of my mentors, they sat me down about 4 months before graduation, and they said, yeah, so this counseling psychology thing is not for you. Oh, okay, I'm looking at grad schools. I'm thinking, hey, Chase Lounge chair, bay window, this is my life. And they said, you know what? No. You are currently serving as your internship down the street at Wentworth as Director of Multiculturalism for your internship. You have served multiple years as a part of the Black Student Union at this school. You were Vice President of the Black Student Union. Emmanuel has sent you to a student-led diversity seminar to represent us against the Ivy League schools. None of those things have anything to do with psychology. And so I really had to sit with, okay, what does that mean? Well, who am I if I'm not going to be doing this work? And here's a couple of pictures for you at my time at Emmanuel. So the picture above is me serving with the Black Student Union. So this was my team. I was vice president to Albert Hale's president. Also, Emmanuel allowed me to be in spaces that I probably would have never been able to be in. So to your left, you see me in this nice white blazer. To the left bottom, you see me. I have on the white blazer. I felt really good. This is when Emmanuel debated the British debate team. And it was awesome. And they allowed me to be moderator. I don't know who thought it was a good idea for me to be moderator, because I go off script often. And they were such a fun group. They look like, you know, the 2006 version of the Beatles. It was awesome. And I was able to also meet, next to that is Martin Luther King III. And it was, as you can see, it was a small delegation of us. And it was really impactful hearing his story. So Emmanuel has been a huge part of, again, shaping my identity, but also turning my passion into a space that I could do the work and be able to work in a place that I not necessarily just thought I should be, but a place where, as a Christian, where God has placed me to be. Here's some random pictures. I was a theater geek, so shout out to Scott Gagnon. So that's us during the final week of school, and I think it's called Howl at the Moon or something like that. Sue can be able to drop it in the chat, because I think that's where we were. And so we were doing Grease because that was one of the shows that we did at Emmanuel at the time. And the bigger picture that's black and white, you couldn't tell me anything. I had on the Yves Saint Laurent button down, which I probably should have tucked in with a belt and a tie, but I just wanted the focus to be the shirt. And that was at I want to say it was called the Cabaret Love something or other, that at the time, Demita Davis, who was our moderator, said we were going to do it, and it ended up being a big deal. And this was just this last picture, not humble whatsoever, God forgive me, a little vanity. When I came back the following year to visit Emmanuel, to my surprise, there was a picture of me that was almost a life-size picture of me up in the building. If anyone knows where this picture has been placed, I will pay for the shipping. There is now another building on top of this building. So this hallway doesn't necessarily exist right there anymore. So I have no idea where that picture went. But if anyone knows where the picture is, I will pay for shipping and handling. This is not a joke. I really, really want that picture. But with all of that said, my time at Emmanuel was an awesome, awesome time. You can see that I not only was able to be a student leader, but it was able to hone some skills that I necessarily didn't think about. The British debate team, being able to moderate and being able to talk to audiences of hundreds of people. Also being a part of the theater group, being able to perform in front of people. The Black Student Union helped me to understand cultural competency. Although I am African American, I served on a team with Black people throughout the diaspora, which was also a culture shock for myself, because being a Baltimorean, you're either Black or white here. And coming to Boston, that was the first time a Black person ever said, "What are you?" I'd never experienced that before. I said, well, what do you mean? Well, no, where are you from? No, or no, what the question I received was, what island are you from? It was like, the island of Baltimore. I'm not quite understanding this line of conversation here. So I was able to get some cultural competency around other Black cultures. I started to be able to get how to do cultural marketing, because we were the Black Student Union, and we were advertising to Black students, but we were also advertising to the entire school and being able to have a conversation or events that were open to the public. We ended up winning Student Organization of the Year that year, the year that I served, and it was an awesome, awesome time. It also taught me event planning. I had never put on major events before, but being able to understand logistics and marketing and team building, these are all of the things that I was able to hone and be able to truly get a sense of while I was at Emmanuel. And these are some of the things that will come back up later in my career. And so after I left Emmanuel, remember, I was told you need to work your passion. How do I work my passion? The last 4 years, I have been working on being a psychologist. How am I going to do this? And so luckily, I came home and I found a mentor, Ruth Elmore, from my church, and she guided me to NTL Institute. Now, today in 2022, colleges are offering DEI training, DEI certifications, master's degrees in DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. This is 2006. There were maybe 2 colleges in the country that I could find that offered the program as a master's program, and they were far, far away from Baltimore. And I was so blessed to be able to talk to people who I knew and be able to find my mentor, Ruth Elmore, and say, oh, you want to be a diversity trainer? Because I didn't know what I wanted to do in the realm of diversity, but I said, you know what, I should start telling people I want to be a diversity trainer. That's what I'll say. And she said, oh, well, that's what I do. There is an organization that will train you to be able to do this. So I started this program. It was an 18-month program where I was able to train with trainers from around the country and around the world, actually. And these were folk who were already doing the work. And I was the youngest man in the cohort. And it was amazing. I was able to be around all these people who are doing the work, from government to universities to nonprofits. And we ended up graduating in Salvador de Bahia, Brazil, because they said, you're not going to be internationally diverse on US soil, so we're going to drop you off in the middle of Bahia, and you're going to finish the last week of training, and we're going to give you your certification here. And NTL helped shape my understanding of dominant groups and marginalized groups and those social groups that I've told you I'm a part of, as you're a part of as well. And also what they did was allow me to be able to teach on DEI issues, facilitate on DEI issues, coordinate on DEI issues, and consult on DEI issues. And fast forward a little bit, a part of my schooling was Morehouse School of Medicine, the Sasha Health Leadership Institute, where I was able to hone my skills a little bit more. Again, iron sharpens iron. Pause for a second, my Baltimore comes out. So many of you have New England accents. That word was extremely hard for me to say as a Baltimorean, because our I's become U's, our A's not necessarily there. So I'm happy I was able to say that without fixing myself, but I had to put it out there. So anyway, Sasha Health Leadership, thank you, Ellen. Sasha Health Leadership Institute was able to help me hone really how to work with communities and being able to do health programs with communities and being able to hear the voice of communities. And so with that training, mind you, during this time, I am working, but I'm also learning myself, and then I'm trying to build a career all at the same time. And I know for any students that may be watching this, or people who may be new alums, I should say, the issue that came up for me was networking, understanding how to network, who to network with, and then how to be able to build a resume that would create a career for me. Again, this is a little different now, the landscape in 2022. You can look at any job posting and there are DEI positions everywhere in all 50 states. This again is between 2008 and 2012, where I was trying to figure out my career path. And so, as I stated earlier, I'm a Christian. My denomination is Baptist. And so the same way that I have a conversation with you is how I have a conversation with God. So my conversation with God went a little like this. All right, Lord, it's been 5 years. I have been doing this work. I cannot find a job in the field. I've been facilitating. I have been building this resume. I've been honing my craft, and I am not working in my field. As the Bible says, a still small voice, and I got a response back saying, well, what do you want to do? I responded back and said, and I want to help Black people, particularly Black men. I prayed on it, I fasted on it, and and then the response I got back again from God was, you want to help Black men? Well, type that into a search engine on Indeed.com. As I stated to you all, I have these conversations with God the same way I'm talking to you. I said, Lord, that is stupid. Why would I type Black men into a search engine on Indeed.com to find a job? The response I got back was, trust me. I typed in Black men on Indeed.com and 2 jobs came up. And one of them was the American Cancer Society. And I went to the job interview, which was the same week as my birthday. And the senior VP who was in charge of hiring was also a minister. And she asked, you know, the question that you always hear, what brought you here? Or why did you apply for this job? So the same story that I just told you about my conversation with God, I told her during the interview, which of course, if you do interview classes, they generally tell you to keep religion and politics to a very bare minimum. But something in my spirit said, tell her your testimony. And when I finished telling her the story, she said, wow. And I was offered the job that week. And so my first major contract was at American Cancer Society. And lo and behold, the group I was looking to work with was the group that I prayed about, Black men. And it was the African American Men's Health Conference for the city of Baltimore. And things that I had to do, I learned at Emmanuel: cultural marketing, how to do specific events for the Black population, specifically how to not only build a initiative from scratch, but then also how to implement it. And so those logistics that I had to learn, oh, there they go. Now, this was much bigger than any of our BSU feats. It also had a much bigger budget than I had ever had in my life, but I was able to do it. And it was a short-term grant. And for the last 10 years, I've worked on nothing but grants. I go where the grants go. And so that's why there's so many different contracts on here. So Centers for Disease Control contracts were usually the contracts that I worked under, or they may have been funded by SAMHSA or REACH grants, but generally federally funded grants. And so for the CDC, I'm not going to say which grant this was, but there were lessons learned about culture, and I would often be asked questions about my culture, going back to high school and going back to my time at Emmanuel. Now, this question I was not ready for, but this was the question I was asked on a CDC call. I said, Charles, do Black people read comic books? And I thought, well, this is a prank phone call. I'm waiting for someone to say, April Fools, or say this was a joke. It was not a joke, and people were waiting for me to answer, not only answer the question and give an educational answer, but they were really, truly waiting on the Centers for Disease Control call for me to give this answer back. And so, of course, I gave a great answer. I said, well, not only do we read them, but we write them as well. This was before Black Panther movie came out, years before then. But there was my culture share that I learned how to do it, and do it in a way that, even though that was a microaggression or seen as a microaggression, for me to be able to get my point across, but also be able to educate at the same time for someone who may have not known that question was offensive. And these are some of the things, if I'm tying a thread, for those of you who may sew or knit, tying the thread all the way back to when I was at Archbishop Curley, connecting it to Emmanuel and into my positions. In these positions, I was able to really be able to make an impact on so many different communities, as far north as Boston, as far west as Oakland, California, and as far south as Miami. I was able to do cultural marketing and outreach. And this was before work from home was as big as it is now. So I was able to do a lot of my work and coordination, again, being able to coordinate an event from home in Oakland that ended up being standing room only once I got there. And I really tie that back to my time at Curly for starting the cultural conversation, Emmanuel for giving me the push to be able to be a speaker, to be able to be a part of the Black Student Union and coordinate events, and then being able to be trained on how to do these things. And so these disparities, whether they were flu, HIV, sexual health, working on food disparities, they all really were a part of really my trajectory that I didn't even think about. And going back to that passion, again, if you remember correctly, I wanted to be the Black Dr. Phil. These have nothing to do with psychology, or does it? A portion of it that I didn't think about as a counseling psychologist is what I thought I was going to be. But if you look at my paperwork from Emmanuel, it says concentration, counseling, and health. There was a whole portion that I thought I was going to push aside, and I actually ended up doing more of the health work than the counseling portion. And these are some of my pictures. I look like a baby in the top corner. And that was my first event of the African American Men's Health Conference. Look at the cheekbones, and also about 75 pounds lighter. I need to diet. Also, a couple of speaking engagements. One of them was taped for a BT special. They cut my segment, but at least I get to put the picture in there for the Greater Baltimore Urban League. The bottom portion is the Washington Post, where I was able to talk for National Black HIV Day, and also to the right is Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's annual conference I was able to speak at their event. And so I credit being able to be a part of organizations that allowed me to be me. So Charles, what does this have to do with treat me how I want to be treated? Well, I'm glad you asked. You said someone's asked in their own mind. It was telepathy. It talks about really, the statement is treat others how you want to be treated. But if I prefer chocolate cake and you prefer strawberry cake, we are at an impasse here. Treating me how I want to be treated is asking me what I want. And then also being able to give the resources to get me my wants or my needs. And how does this go back to the question around, or a conversation I said earlier around passion, faith, preparation, as well as mission, is that I wrote down in my journal years ago, I want to make an impact on the city of Baltimore. I want to make an impact, particularly with Black people, and I want to make an impact utilizing my faith and being able to make an impact in the church that I serve in, but also utilizing my faith, particularly within Black communities around the country. And I was able to do that through all of my positions, and it leads to my current position, where I'm the Health Equity Director at the Baltimore City Health Department. And remember, I'm talking passion, faith, preparation, and mission. I looked at their vision of an equitable, just, and well Baltimore, where everyone has the opportunity to be healthy and to thrive. Well, that connects back to what I wrote down in my journal, my own personal mission, where I said I wanted to help my city. Then I looked at their mission to protect health, eliminate disparities, and ensure the well-being of every Baltimorean through education, advocacy, and direct service delivery. Well, that connects back to me wanting to help, as I said, the Black community, as well as in increasing health awareness around my city. And remember, I had prayed to God. I said, okay, I want to help Black men. So I'm in a space now that both my lives around my DEI work and my health disparity work, I'm able to do both of them in the same space. And so I've been here a little bit under a year, but I'm very, very excited to be able to do what I love to do and what I consider my vocation. And not only that, but I've been called to serve as well. And so there's multiple organizations that I've been serving in where I can put my passion and purpose into action. And so a couple of advocacy organizations or nonprofits that I've been working with or for. So the Greater Baltimore Urban League, which is an auxiliary of the Greater Baltimore Leadership Association, which is an auxiliary of the Greater Baltimore Urban League, which is a part of the National Urban League. For those of you who don't know, the National Urban League is the second oldest civil rights organization in the country. There's actually one in your backyard in the Roxbury, the Northern Mass Urban League, which does some great work in the communities around the Boston area. And I've been able to lead locally, but also nationally. And again, I credit being a student leader at Emmanuel with being able to teach me how to be a leader. I didn't know I was getting leadership skills, but teach me how to be a leader, where I was able to lead as president of GBLA and actually win National President of the Year that year. I just signed off the National Urban League Young Professionals team this past December, but being able to lead initiatives all around the country and be a subject matter on these initiatives. But it started with my landscape that was laid at Emmanuel. Currently, I serve on the Maryland Social Determinants of Health Task Force, where we report back to the legislature, and we also make suggestions around health disparities. I was co-chair for too many years, 6 years. It's a long time to be a co-chair. For those of you who are in policy and procedures or parliamentarians, you know that there probably should be term limits, but I digress. I've been working with the African American COVID-19 response team in Baltimore. Right before I started the position, I was already doing the work. And then once I started this position that I'm in, I will continue to do the work around what does outreach look like, and not only to the African American community, which is the major community in Baltimore, but also those other communities as well. So we have our values communities, which are made up of pregnant and lactating women, those who are experiencing homelessness, those who are of the Orthodox Jewish community, the Latinx community, and so many other communities that go back to being able to understand cultural competency, being able to understand how different communities want to receive information. And it goes back to really the title of what we were talking about, treating others the way they want to be treated. It all ties together. And so just thank you for those of you who are on social media. I know we're about to do a question and answer portion, but if there was anything that I said, please quote me. I know that means that you were actually listening to me. You can follow me on Diverse Charles at Twitter, Diverse Charles on Instagram, or you can also follow me or friend me on LinkedIn, Charles D. Jackson. I am so grateful to be here with you all, and I look forward to the next couple of minutes of being able to have a conversation. And I have to say, I see Carolyn Caveney on here, who was instrumental in getting me through Emmanuel and actually getting my diploma. So I would be remiss if I did not say hello, Carolyn. It is good to be able to see you, and thank you 20 years later, because without you, literally, I might not have graduated, but I'm not going into that story. Back to you, Ellen.
No, we love those stories. Are you kidding me? That's what is part of makes Emmanuel such a special place. And no, thank you, Charles, for all your references, and kudos to you, and kudos to Emmanuel for supporting you on your journey. I love that. Sometimes it's really hard to give people the advice that the vocation they might be considering is really not what they should be considering. So kudos to whoever gave you that advice and started you on this journey, and really very, very impressive, good work. Thank you for all that you're doing. Let's open it up to questions and discussion with our guest. I think that one of the harder things is when you're dealing with healthcare, especially, is feeling like your doctor is actually taking what you're saying seriously, and maybe underreacting or just not, you just don't feel like you're on the same page. So I think that the important work that you're doing of actually helping people advocate for themselves, as well as advocating for others to treat people the way that they want to be treated, is so valuable. So thank you for that. Do we have any questions for Charles, or anybody who would like to make a comment or a suggestion? We have a lot of nice things in the chat, Charles. You have to take a look.
I see.
If you haven't.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Catherine, for the kind words around psychology and being humbled. I've had to learn to humble myself often, which is a not an easy feat. There is a space where early on in my career, I did not feel that I was worthy to be able to walk through the doors that I was allowed to walk through, because here I am, I'm very new, and who am I to be able to do this work? And now on the flip side, being a decade later, still wrestling with the understanding of, I know what I'm talking about now, but being humble enough to not have to walk in every room and say, hey, I'm the subject matter expert on this, but be able to walk gently with whoever I'm working with during that time. And I see Susan, what's your question?
Hi, thank you, Charles. This was awesome. I just feel so fortunate to be here. I'm not an alumni. I was invited by my friend, Lori Ann. Thank you, Lori Ann. I love the topic of what you're speaking about here. I think many years ago, I heard somebody refer to it as the platinum rule. Never mind the golden rule, the platinum rule, treat others as they would like to be treated. And I just love that sentiment. So important. And it's not immediately, what's the word, intuitive. You have to really think about it. My question for you is, here in Massachusetts and probably in lots of places, DEI is the new buzzword. Yeah. Everybody's hiring a DEI person. All the hospitals have one. Meanwhile, their services to people of color and the vulnerable population in general continues to worsen. We have more respect. We have lots of reports of disrespectful healthcare being provided to people of color. And at the same time, you have this paradox of them hiring DEI and developing these huge departments. So obviously they're missing the mark. And I'm just wondering, and we're kind of like, we have our head in our hands, not sure how to move forward on this. And I would so value your thoughts on that.
Sure. So it's twofold. So I agree with you. Everyone, particularly post the death of George Floyd, every organization is now hiring a diversity, equity, inclusion consultant, or opening up a department of diversity, equity, inclusion, which is great. That's a first step that is needed. Some organizations, including Emmanuel, has had someone working on these issues for years. I see Jeff, so shout out to you, Jeff, down there. I would say that step one, the next step is tracking the data. And so when you say, well, there's all of these problems that are arising, my first question is always, are they arising just suddenly, or have they been a part of the system, a part of this organization for years, and now they have just come to light? And so oftentimes, when I'm brought into organizations as a consultant or facilitator, I often say, I am not the cure to your DEI issues. If anything, call me a doctor, and what I'm about to do is rip the Band-Aid off of this wound that is housing a cancer. And what you do with it after you rip this Band-Aid off is up to you as an organization and up to you as a system. So after you finish tracking, then really strategizing with the DEI department internally around what are some of the lessons learned, the people who are marginalized in this organization, what are they saying, and are we hearing their voices? And not to get too deep into it, because I know you all have already had sessions on this, but we talk about diversity. That's literally just bringing a large group of people together from different backgrounds. When we talk about inclusion, that means we are actually having them voice not only their opinions, but their thoughts and themselves, and be brought at the table. When we talk about equity, if you all don't know this, because because we're on a virtual screen, I am not the tallest of people. And so I may need a step stool that you all who are a little bit taller don't need. That equity right there is giving me the resources that I need in order to be able to flourish. And so truly looking at where are we in all of these points within our organization, and how are we going to work through these issues here at the organization? That was a very, very generalized statement. It is, I will suggest to you, there are multiple groups that I look to. The Winters group, please go on their website, and there are some amazing suggestions for how organizations can do systems change. There's a local organization called BRJA, the Baltimore Racial Justice Action Group, that also has some free resources that organizations can look into and be able to implement. So those are just two groups that I would suggest, Susan, and best of luck to you and your hospital system. I see there are questions coming in from multiple ways, so I'm going to also answer the questions in the chat. At my college, thank you, Mark. Well, brother Mark is from the National Urban League. He's from the Buffalo chapter. So Mark, I appreciate you joining me today. At my college, the theater folks were a major influence in terms of student elections, leadership roles, elevating desired students to certain positions. Was it like that at Emmanuel? I would say it was a hodgepodge, Mark, because the theater folk were also student leaders as well. So it just so happened that theater folk were just in multiple spaces at the same time. One of the gentlemen, I am blanking on his name right now, that I would be in plays with, he also became student government. He became the head of student government, I want to say 2 or 3 years into me being at Emmanuel, so probably my junior year. And I know that he's now taken that and he's gone on to be an elected official afterwards. So yes, the theater geeks, we which is in now, which, okay, just sidebar, it's just so crazy that, you know, being a theater person is the end thing now. But they were a part of the landscape of Emmanuel. And I'm seeing a couple other, yes, that's who I'm thinking about. Thank you, Amy. Mike Valenzola is his name. I hope he's doing well, but that's exactly who I was thinking about, Mike. Were there any other questions? Yes, Jeffrey.
Yes, Charles, great to see you. Thank you so much for coming to talk to us today. And it's been great hearing about your work. I think we met in 2015, and
yes,
you were doing this work, but it sounds like you've done so much more since. So awesome to see that you're doing such important and vital work. So my question for you is what does allyship look like to you? So I think that in a community like Emmanuel, in spaces where it is diverse, you have different racial groups, different communities represented. What does allyship look like to you, especially as you're advocating for Black and Brown people, especially men in Baltimore? So folks from outside that community, how do they support you?
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Awesome question. So allyship to me truly means putting your money where your mouth is. If it's an organization, again, the last 2 years, many organizations have said, yes, Black lives do matter. And then I want to look at what your budget line item says. So thank you for those kudos. Thank you for that pat on the back. But if your line items don't reflect that, that is not allyship to me. That is a great talking point. Also, allyship looks like to me, so that's on a systemic level, but on an individual level, is, are you speaking about me or the groups that I belong in a way that uplifts me when I'm not in the room? So on an individual level, if you hear a colleague say something, if it's around race, are you going to intercept that conversation and say, that's not cool here, and I don't accept that? Even if it's a colleague, if it's a family member, what does that look like? And for me, also group level wise, is being able to understand all those social groups that I listed at very early on, how we show up in the world. That's another thing that I had to learn at Emmanuel, and then in my work, is that I have a perception of who I am. Again, hi, if you didn't know, I'm Black, I don't think about being Black every day. I just wake up and I am. But I know that when I walk into a room, there are perceptions and biases that come with those who look like me. I'm very specific around going into certain areas and even how I present myself, because me wearing a hoodie may not be allowed in certain areas. We saw that with, the deaths of people like Trayvon Martin. He had on a hoodie. Mark Zuckerberg wears a hoodie daily, and no one looks at him as a thug, and he should not be, killed on sight. So as you can see, I'm in a blazer right now. So even as a marginalized person around race, understanding how I show up in the room means something to different people, but also that on the flip side, how I'm perceived is not necessarily my problem. It may be yours and your systems. And so as an ally, looking at, again, going back to that group level, but systemic approach as well, is how is the organization that I'm a part of uplifting those who are the least of these, if I'm used to use religious speak. How, if we're looking at equity, how as an ally am I getting the resources to those who are most in need within my institution? And how as an ally am I listening to, and I can't say it enough, those who are particularly in marginalized spaces around their wants and needs? Because I am not an ally if I prefer chocolate cake, I'm on a low carb diet right now. That's why I keep on going back to carbs, everyone. And you're giving me strawberry cake. That is not allyship, because you're giving me what you want me to have and not what I want to have. And you're not treating me how I want to be treated. So hope that answered your question, Jeff.
Oh, yes, thank you, Charles.
Thank you. And I see Lorianne in the chat. I'm just going to read this out loud. As a woman with a lifelong disability, I appreciate that you introduce yourself as temporarily able-bodied. You're recognizing that we all should care about disability rights because everyone will be there someday. That is very true. Thank you, Lorianne. I'm trying my best also to be an ally in the space. I'm still learning. This is a new learning for me as I go through all of those social groups: race, gender orientation, age, ability, class, religion, ethnicity. I am diving into the conversation around disability rights, even the use of language. And I've had some advocates who said, no, we don't use those terms anymore. Those are passé. So really understanding that my ability right now, it's where I am right now, but it could change. I even think about my vision. Oftentimes friends will say, you have 20/20 vision. And I had a doctor say that won't last forever. So enjoy it now. And we don't think about it because we have most of us have the privilege of being able to have glasses, which is a privilege if you are able to afford them and to be able to utilize them. We don't think about it. So we don't even think about sight as a ability issue until you can't see something. Or the print, as you get a little bit older and that print is in font 10 and you need it to be at least in 14. So some of those things, but also how that works for systems, which I'm, again, learning from disability advocates in this past 2 years, is that we're, moving back into a space of being in person. And I've been hearing disability advocates say, I'm about to lose many of the capabilities that I've gotten used to. So if I'm to be an ally in this space right now, one of the things that I didn't think about turning on, we didn't turn on captions today. And there may be someone who may need to be able to see written words. So if I'm going to utilize myself, I need to start thinking, keeping captions up in every meeting, because everyone may not be able to hear what is being said, but they can read it. And so that other space around treat me how I want to be treated is being in a constant state of learning. So thank you, Lorianne, for acknowledging me in my growth and what I'm learning to do. And I know we only have a couple minutes left.
Yeah. I was going to say we have time for one more question or one more comment if anybody would like to have that honor of having the final question or the final comment.
I have a question. I don't know if it will be worthy of being the final question, but first of all, Charles, great to see you. I think we may have been on SGA together. I was class of 2009, so we definitely cross paths at some point.
Yeah.
And I'm so impressed by everything you've accomplished. So thank you so much for sharing your journey and your insights with us. So my question is, so in the ESG world, we're seeing a lot of backlash for greenwashing, as it should be, like to the point where the SEC is basically saying for investment offerings, like this could be rendered as fraud if you are saying something is ESG in the world of ESG, or there's certain impacts and there's not. So my question is, as it relates to like diversity and inclusion, how can we sort of hold companies and organizations accountable? Like if we don't have access maybe to like their budget, or like you mentioned about like the line items, and I definitely agree with that. But do you have any advice just as like members or employees, like how we can sort of like start to say, okay, well, that's great that you hired a diversity, like a DEI ahead, but like, can you take it a step further, or just like advice on how to hold groups accountable, including ourselves as individuals too?
Sure. So thank you for writing out what ESG was, environment. Thank you, Jeffrey, for putting the acronym, because I was going to ask myself just to make sure.
Environmental, social, environmental, sustainable, and governance.
Okay, thank you. So really, it's the same path, even if you can't get the line items, being able to see what the output is. So almost every year, every organization puts out some type of annual report. So really looking at the annual report and even seeing if in the annual report, the DEI initiatives are being reported on, and if they're being tracked. If not, then being able to say, hey, I just saw the annual report and I know that there's a new DEI director or coordinator, but I don't see that in the annual report. Where are we with this? And really holding organizations feet to the fire around it. And it's generally a little bit easier when organizations have made some type of statement, where again, a lot of organizations said, well, yes, we support Black Lives Matter, or they have put it on their websites. We are happy about diversity, equity, inclusion, and we're trying to do DEI. Then you can really say, oh, well, on the website, it says that, we want to treat people equitably. What does that look like now? And how, and you can then ask the question, how are we are tracking this? And then really being able to say, okay, this is what we said we're doing, but we're not here. How do we get here? And so, in business speak, it's all about the bottom line. In the DEI world, there is a contention around utilizing diversity, equity, inclusion as a business model, or coming at it from a financial point of view. I'm somewhere in the middle, because to people who only speak money, everything is money to them. And DEI is seen as this touchy-feely thing that means nothing to the bottom line. And it truly means everything to the bottom line, because when we talk about attrition rates and those who are leaving, that could be a diversity, equity, inclusion issue. Who's being elevated in the space, who is getting moved from the bottom rung all the way to the top rung. If everyone looks the same, we may have an issue. If all of them are white men, and white men are part of the diversity conversation and should not be left out, but if the entire leadership team or those who are leading an organization or the entire board all looks the same, we may want to take a step back and say, the people that we're serving don't necessarily look like leadership. So there are multiple levels, Amy, where you can ask the question at different levels of the organization or organizations or systems, and be able to get to some place of understanding, even if you don't see the financials, because you can see the output. And if the output is not there, that the organization may not be working on it. I hope that answered a little bit of your question.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Welcome.
Right.
Thank you.
The accountability thing is huge. It's absolutely huge. And it's like, don't just put that up there because it's fashionable. You know,
Yes, yes.
so.
And just one last thing, and I will say, I know many are alum, or some are still working in the system of Emmanuel, but I will definitely say the point about listening to those who are in marginalized spaces. Emmanuel has come a long way and very far, but we have a lot to work on still when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion within our organization, within our school. You know, Emmanuel has been lauded for having really good diversity numbers. You know, for predominantly white institutions, if you can get that 20% mark, you are awesome. You are deemed one of the best colleges in the country around DEI if you can get to that 20% mark. I would say let's go above and beyond what is on par with other organizations, and also truly utilizing the student voice to see what their needs are, particularly students of color, and how best that you can allow them to be able to speak and allow them to grow. Emmanuel did that for me. And I don't know if that was the experience of every student of color at Emmanuel in the past 20 years. I had great people like Demita Davis, who was an advocate for us. Great folk who were there, who were elevating the voice. Roy Stone Martinez, another one that worked in the institution. And I'm sure it wasn't easy. I'm sure it's probably not easy for Jeff, being in the space that he's in, to be able to advocate for students when they're not there. But please, 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 if anything, if you don't remember anything else I said, please listen to those students that are there now, and particularly students of color, because their voices are genuine and they're needed, and they will allow for Emmanuel to be around another 100+ years. And I'll end with that, Ellen.
No, thank you. No, I can say that our students are in great hands with Jeff and Fiat, who are both on the call. So it's really important, and I appreciate you saying that. Thank you so much, Charles. Well, I think I am speaking for all of us when I just thank you so much. We really appreciate you giving of your time and your talent and all your wisdom. And it really is so heartwarming that our alumni are supporting us in this way and able to have these conversations, which are so valuable. So thank you. We do have a couple things that I did just want to share that are coming up. I just shared our alumni website in the chat. We have a lot of events coming up this spring. Registration links and more information about all of these can be found on the website. But on Sunday, April 24th, the college will host the 9th annual Dorothy Day Lecture. It's one of our first big events that's coming back to campus. That's in the library lecture hall at 1 p.m. You can also register to receive a video link after the event if you're unable to come to campus. Pam Wilmot is the director of the National Popular Vote Initiative and the vice president of the state operations for Common Cause, will present a lecture called Democracy in Crisis, Is National Popular Vote the Solution? So that would be interesting. On Monday, May 9th, we're holding the third and final session of our virtual 3-part mindfulness meditation series. Alumna Kiana Reed, the class of 2017, will lead us through a practice of relaxation and journaling on the path to mindfulness. Attendance at the first and second session are not necessary to attend. Jeff, I'm glad you brought up the word allyship, because on Wednesday, May 18th at 12 noon, we will hold our final installment of our 9-part Emmanuel Together series. Janine Ting Jansen, class of 03, will discuss activating allyship, what we can all do to support greater equity and true belonging. So that will be a nice wrap up and kind of continuing with our theme here for our Emmanuel Together series this year. And last but not least, Alumni Weekend 2022 is starting on Friday, June 3rd. Please check the website for a number of all alumni events on June 3rd and June 4th, including a 4:30 p.m. Saturday Mass to honor Emmanuel President, Sister Janet Eisner, celebrated by Cardinal Sean O'Malley. Again, we hope that you can join us at these and all of our upcoming spring events. And again, my thanks for your support of our programming, to Charles for sharing your wisdom. It has been a delight meeting you and working with you. And I'm so grateful to Dr. Rismeyer for making that connection and introducing me to you. So thank you. Well done. Bye, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Take care.